Hello everybody, my name is Necroxus, and it's time for another video where a lot of people are going to hate me for my opinion. So, all of the 100 plus people who subscribe because of the 7.2 trailer reaction, hope you stick with me, but sorry if you gotta leave after this video. So, today we're going to talk about 7.2, as you can see from the title of the video. And let me just say, this is going to be another video where I'm criticizing World of Warcraft and Legion specifically. So, I know I have like 3 or 4 people who downvote every video I have because at some point I triggered them so they downvote every single video I make from now from eternity because they're children. But I'm also probably going to get quite a few people who are going to just downvote the video or already have based on what I just said. But I will say, if you can bother, spend some time and listen to what I actually say, and if you think I'm wrong, tell me why. But let's start from a general point of view, shall we? I want to talk about lying. And I want to talk about how we can all pretty much universally agree that lying to somebody else to get something from them is almost always wrong. There are very specific cases where I would argue it's not. But in general, I would say it's probably not the right thing to do. And the one thing that people usually lie to other people about to get from them is money. And I would like to think that anytime I've purposely lied, unintentionally, because I really can't think of a lie that I've intentionally told to you guys, I've apologized for it or I've stated that I was wrong. I can think of only one case where that happened here on the channel, and that was, I think it was during Warlord's development, or like right after it came out, where I was talking about, there was a video where I urged people to use the token with gold to play the game, rather than giving Blizzard money themselves. And people were telling me, well, you're still giving them money, and arguably you're giving them more money, because the tokens that you buy to get on the auction house for gold actually cost $20, when 30 days cost $15, and I said, no, they're wrong, and I used some kind of nonsensical argument, and I was wrong. And I think that's the one case, and then in subsequent videos where I talked about it, I said that I was wrong, and I stopped saying that because it was incorrect. So, I'd like to think that if people blatantly lie to you, and it's not intentional, that's a key point, if it's not intentional and they find out about it or are told about it, they'd like to apologize. Then we have companies who only care about the bottom line, because that really is all they're beholden to. They're stockholders who are just interested in making money, and they don't really have to apologize for that, because they really suffer no negative ramifications unless they do something so egregious that the image of the company takes a hit, which that has not happened yet. So I want to apply this to World of Warcraft Legion in 7.2. And I want to make a pitch to you guys that Blizzard blatantly lied to our faces, and that this patch is a giant scam to try and make us pay for a very actual small amount of content that has been stretched for that's going to be stretched for about 3 months. And I want to do that in the vein of telling you guys first what Blizzard is saying to advertise 7.2 versus what 7.2 actually is, if you're not playing it yet, and I have. And then I want to talk about this idea of them purposefully not correcting people who apparently were mistaken, including myself, during the entire PTR about how 7.2 was going to be, but actually wasn't. So, let's begin. I have some articles up here because I want this to be a little bit more structured than just rambly, so sorry for the clicking and all that. I'm switching between articles on here, but I'm looking at the official patch notes, and these by far are not the first thing that they used. I mean, this is not advertisement for 7.2. These are just the patch notes. But I want to point out that even in the patch notes, it's very misleading, and these are the official ones from Blizzard, about what actually is in 7.2. So, I'm looking at the patch notes on MMO Champion, and the first 2 things are about the Broken Shore and the new dungeon, which are both fine. I don't have a problem with that. The problem that we first get into is the class campaigns, and that is the third thing that they mention. And I'll try to remember to put a link to the official notes in the comment below so you can see it yourself, and I'm not lying. But the third thing on these official patch notes are about class campaigns. And it says, I quote, after securing a foothold on the Broken Shore and making progress with the armies of Legionfall, every class continues its own campaign to fully unify the war effort. Your class hall will be the base from which you embark on a new quest chain, find a new potential follower, and discover new class-specific world quests. Once your class campaign and Legionfall campaign are complete, an all-new epic class mount will become available to you who finish the subsequent class mount quests. This is a lie. This will eventually be unlocked, but this is not available right now. The class campaign... Let's make one thing clear. The class campaign continuation and the flying mount quest chain are two separate things. They're not the same thing. So, to give Blizzard credit, they're not saying that they are, but I just wanted to point that out so everyone knows who isn't aware. But the class campaign will be the thing that'll be done first, and the flying mount will be second because you have to actually get flying enabled before you can get the flying mount quest chain, obviously. So let's talk about the campaign continuation. This implies, and so does every piece of advertising that you're going to see about 7.2 that Blizzard talks about, including interviews they did beforehand, including emails they send you to get you to come back to the game if you're not subscribed, or even if you are subscribed like I was, just to get you informed. They will never tell you that this campaign is not available right now. Everything will be made to imply that you can log on to the game right now, finish the introduction scenario, finish the introduction stuff at the Broken Shore, and then go and do that campaign. And you cannot do that. I would classify that as a blatant lie. You will not be able to do this campaign quest line until, I believe, at least 2 weeks from now, if not more. I think it's like chapter 7 or 8 of this story that I would argue is really not a story. It's just a bunch of gated stuff that they're putting in one particular place and calling it chapters of a story. You will not be able to do this for 2 weeks at the very least. And there is nowhere where this is stated that this is not available immediately. All of this says here, the best thing that you can point to if you want to defend this is on the patch notes themselves, and this is the only place that I could find this one clarification little blurb, is that after securing a foothold on the Broken Shore and making progress with the armies of Legionfall. You could, I guess if you wanted to be pedantic about it, you could say, well, that means after you do it for a little while. It's never stated that way anywhere else. It's never stated that on any of the advertisements that they do. It's never stated like that on the emails that they send you to get you to come back. Nothing, in my opinion, sufficiently tells you that you can't do this right now if you get into the game. And I think what is sinister about this is that, in fact, the opposite, I believe, is true. They make it seem like you can do this to resubscribe, to then find out, after you've already paid them the money, that you can't actually do this quest chain right now. You have to wait at least 2 weeks. Now, the next part of the notes are demonic assaults. This says, the Burning Legion is preparing to assault Azeroth with renewed determination. After you regain a foothold on the Broken Shore, which is the introduction. So, if anyone's going to try and defend Blizzard by saying, they said after you regain the foothold is the introduction cinematic. That's all that it is. And I have that on the channel, so it's like a 20-minute scenario. It's don't be surprised if the Broken Isle zones will later come under attack. That's the only word that they use that you can defend this with, later. They don't tell you when. They don't tell you how long you're supposedly going to have to wait. They don't tell you that it actually doesn't even start until a week later, because the invasions don't actually begin until next week. This is the one word, later. What does that mean? Does it mean later in the day, later in the tomorrow, later next week, later in a month, later in a year, later when the raid comes out, later when the raid is done, later after you did the dungeon? When is later? And once again, these patch notes are the only place that they even use that qualifying word. So, if you get an email, and I know this specifically is in the email because I just read it, they talked about demon assaults. You might think you could log on today, do that introduction, and you can be doing the demon assault in the zones. Wrong. That's a lie. They don't even unlock until next week. And even then, going off of the PTR, which we'll talk about in a second, I don't even know if you can trust the PTR right now, based on what they're doing. But if you trust the PTR, they're only up twice a day for like 2 hours. So good luck trying to get them. So what's next? They talk about flying. Here's the thing about flying. In order to unlock flying, you have to do 4 things. You have to explore the Broken Isles. You have to do an invasion in all 4 zones, and then do the scenarios at the end of each one of them. You have to get revered with the new faction, which is called the Legion Fall faction. And then, what is the last one? You have to have Broken Isles Pathfinder Part 1. Now, Pathfinder Part 1 was easy to do, and I and many other people have had it done for weeks and weeks and weeks. Exploring the Broken Isles takes about 5 minutes. Defending the Isles against invasions, you literally can't do that until next week. And then, I have no idea what the order in how the invasions go. I don't know if next Tuesday, if Val'sharah gets invaded. I don't know if the second one is in Val'sharah as well, or if it goes in a clockwise formation, or if it's random, or if it's in a particular order. Who knows? And then you have to get revered with the new faction. And the only 2 ways to do that are to do world quests, which are finite, and after you do, I think, about 5 right now, there are no more for like 8 hours or even more. You can only do it that way, or get lucky through the RNG system that is the Facebook game, also known as the Order Hall, and get a mission or 2 that will give you a token that gives you 250 reputation. So, they seem to imply that you can begin working on flying, but to me, that's misleading, because once you have done all 5 world quests when you first start, and you can't do anymore, you literally cannot get more reputation. You might get lucky and get a mission to do it, but if you don't, you literally cannot get any more reputation. And people have been calling this a grind, but this is not actually a grind. A grind is you can just bash your face against something and slowly and inevitably get there. You can't do that here. You're at the mercy of whatever world quests want to respawn. Some respawn after 8 hours, some respawn after 12, some after 16, some not for 24 or even more. There are certain world quests that only respawn like every 2 days. So this is not actually a grind. This is just another gate that you are forced to just wait and just hope that eventually you'll get it. And eventually you will get it if you do it every single day. But unlike previous expansions, not Warlords, because Warlords is where this started, but from Mists of Pandaria backwards, you used to be able to grind out reputation through some way. Mists of Pandaria, it were the daily quests that were every day were one way. There are other ways to do it as well. And going further on back, there were multiple ways to do it as well, up through and including just killing mobs who would give you reputation. That's not how it is anymore. So you really... It's a little bit misleading, in my opinion, to say you can begin working on Pathfinder, because that implies that the grind is there where you can just work on it whenever you want, and you can't. There is no reward for someone who's playing a little bit longer than somebody else, and if they want to try and focus, I want to get revered because I want to get flying soon. And if I get revered now, then when the invasions come out, I'll just do all 4 zones as soon as I can, and I'll be one of the first people to get flying. Wrong. You can play as much as someone who plays 2 hours a day, 3 days a week, and you guys will be at the same level. Why? It forces you to play longer and to pay Blizzard. So, I think that's about it. Other than that, the PvP brawls are, I don't know when the brawls activate. PvP I don't really care about because I don't do it, so whatever for PvP. But other than that, the Pet Battle Dungeon is actually one of the few things that still is available at launch. I know, what a shocking notion. Having major features that you advertise actually being available at launch. Who'd have thunk? But other than that, that's really it. What do you have to do in 7.2 besides that? You can do the stupid quest that has nothing to do with your artifact to unlock your next traits, which, yippee, now you get to grind out millions upon hundreds of millions upon billions of artifact power, the favorite mechanic of the game. And how can you do that? You can do that by getting more artifact knowledge up to level 50, which gives something like 113 billion% increased artifact power. And the fact that Blizzard saw this when they programmed it and didn't think this was absurd on its face is kind of amazing to me. So that's really, from Blizzard's perspective, how I think they have just lied right to our faces. You can make, I think, a more compelling argument for the flying point, and I would acknowledge it, but I really do think for the campaigns and for the assaults that they are talking about them like you can do them right now, and you absolutely cannot. You definitely cannot do them right now. Now, let me just check, because I made a post about this on the official forums, and if I can remember, I'll also put a link to that in the comment below. That is pretty highly rated at this point, and is about at 12 or 13 pages now, where I talked about all of the reasons I think 7.2 is a scam. Let me just scan this real quick and see if there's anything that I've forgotten, except before we get to the PTR being misleading part. We talked about gating, we talked about the Broken Shore story barely being even a story, and that takes about 20 minutes. The dungeon takes about 30 minutes at the most, and it's incredibly easy except for the last boss, Mephistroth, who not only shouldn't be the last boss, because he should be the Warlock boss, but also he's the only hard to fight because it's bugged, and the mechanic where he shoots shadow orbs out that you then need to protect Illidan from can't be seen by about 90% of players. So that's the only reason Mephistroth is hard, and it's because the fight's not working right. We didn't talk about the buildings you can make. So I guess this will be the segue into the PTR part. And like I said, I think there needs to really be a discussion now about Blizzard. Before, the first part was about Blizzard blatantly lying, in my opinion, and now I think this part is about Blizzard lying by omission. And what I mean is that throughout the entire PTR, there were systems in place that were being developed for the patch, including the buildings, including, what are some of the other ones that I'm forgetting off the top of my head? The buildings, including when stuff is released, and including how long things are going to take to do. So, throughout the entire PTR, and these three things never changed once, the way things were being developed made the implication that they were all going to be available after you do the intro scenario, only for us to find out when the game went live that whoopsie-doo, switcheroo, we're going to become a Korean MMO now, and none of that stuff actually is available right now. You have to wait before it actually comes out. And let's talk about, first, the 3 buildings that you can build on the Broken Shore with the stupid new resource, Legionfall resources, or whatever it is. On the PTR, and if you guys are curious, you can go and look at some of the videos that I've made on this topic when it was in the PTR. When you contribute your resources to the building, it really didn't take that long to get the building to 100% and to be active. In fact, in this post that I've made, I said it took about 1.5 to 2 days. It probably took only about 24 hours if everyone was actually contributing to it. Now, compare this to live, where if you log onto your servers, you will be surprised to find out that you're even at 10% completed. Which is really surprising, because you would figure that the most amount of people who are interested in this patch would be playing on the day that it comes out. So I think it's a logical assumption to think that the most amount of people would be playing in 7.2 on Tuesday when it came out, and the fact that they couldn't even hit 10% on most servers. When I was playing yesterday before I quit, I was at about 4, and that was late at night at like 10, 11. They didn't tell us this during the PTR. In fact, they didn't say a single thing about it. They didn't say we were developing how much resource cost the buildings are actually going to be. They didn't say that the resource cost for the buildings was lowered to test them out. They didn't say that it would take much, much longer than it is implied to by the PTR itself. They said nothing. And you can't use the excuse of, oh, well, they just forgot, when they were saying those things about other things in the PTR. Namely, the artifact power stuff. They kept repeatedly talking about the amount of artifact power to get to an X rank. And they kept saying, oh, we're only testing this right now, and we're going to adjust it and make it higher or lower based on what we think we could do with it. They never said that about the 3 buildings. So,
the logical assumption to make, which is what 100% of people who play the PTR made, and all of the people who do content on YouTube and articles and write stuff and whatever, all of the free advertising Blizzard got, there is never the caveat added that, oh, this new system actually takes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times as long as it actually is on the PTR, because Blizzard never told us otherwise. I believe this is a lie of omission, which is another point against Blizzard here. So, what's the next thing we can talk about? So those are the buildings, which are just, I think they're just, that might be one of the more outlandish things to me that just sticks out right in my face about, I can't believe they wouldn't say that, and that's so blatantly shady to me, that thing. So, we can actually apply this philosophy to the ideas of things that I just talked about in the first part of the video. Namely, when things are released. If you guys watched the videos when I played the PTR, here's how it worked. You did the scenario, you were done, and then immediately, after you did the few intro quests on the Broken Shore, you were immediately sent back to your order hall to both begin researching your new artifact knowledge and starting your class campaign. They never once, ever, even when after it came out, 7.2, they never once said that it was going to take 2 or more weeks before you could do this. So, everyone who's playing the PTR and everyone who's talking about this new campaign, myself, everyone across the internet, Wowhead, name anybody else, MMO champion, no one had the caveat of saying, this cool thing, and it wasn't cool for every class, some of them were fucking boring, like the Warlock one was, but some of them were not, like the Death Knight one, but this potentially cool thing actually isn't coming out for half a month. At least. They never once clarified this. They never once said, you actually can't do this once the scenario to the introduction is done. It's actually gated by 2 weeks or more. Because who knows if they're even going to be coming out in 2 weeks. I'm going off of the name of one of the chapters on the achievement that sounds like what it is, and I don't even know if that's true. They never said and came out and said you had to wait 2 to 3 weeks before you could do it. Not a single time. So everyone's playing and testing out the new content and giving them tons of free advertising, like I said, and they are just sitting there purposefully not telling a single person that all of this stuff that seems like it's available immediately on 7.2 is just gated and you can't do it. And this is not me having sour grapes. Check the forums. Other threads that aren't mine. People like Howie. I was talking to him, and he's never at the level of criticism of Blizzard and WoW that I am. I'm always way more extreme than he is in that. And even he was like, man, I thought we were going to do like the invasions and the class scenarios and the introduction and the scenarios then will be available, and then the invasions would be available. That's what he and a lot of people thought was available immediately, and it's not. And why? Because Blizzard purposely didn't tell anybody that actually all of, like, literally 90% of the content of the patch is locked away for next week, or 2 weeks after that, or 3 weeks after that, or 11 weeks, which is what it's going to take to complete the entire story of the 7.2 campaign on the Broken Shore. So, that's that. You can make this exact same point about invasions as well. They never said that the invasions would be locked to after a week. I don't even know why, from a logical perspective, why they would do that. I mean, even in the confines of them trying to stretch out this patch that admittedly already has, like, not a lot of content, even when they're trying to stretch it out for as long as possible, there's about 30 minutes right now that you can do before you're stuck. And what can you only do after that? You can go do old world quests, or you can do the 1 or 2 world quests on the Broken Shore that you haven't done yet that are just kill 10 things, collect 10 things, stop 10 things, close 3 things, close 4 things, grab 5 items. All the same things we've been doing for almost, for 9-10 months now since world quests have been a thing. There's really not a single new kind of idea to world quests in 7.2. Admittedly, some of them are a little fancier. Like, some of them have, like, a mini cutscene at the end when you finish them, but who cares? They're still the same things. But, yeah, so I don't even know why they wouldn't have invasions available from the beginning. It seems like something that is fun and is on repeat, and is something that people would want to do more than once because it gives good rewards. And the scenarios are kind of fun at the end, in my opinion. I don't know why they wouldn't at least include that at the beginning. I mean, there's so little actually included at the beginning that it's kind of amazing to me that they would even pretend to call this the largest patch ever. And that's what they're doing. Them and other people are calling this the largest post-launch of an expansion patch ever. And it's a joke, because it's not. It has a in between small and moderate, in between that, it has about that much content, but most of it you can't even do yet. So it's just false impression after false impression after false impression. It's not an oopsie doops, we forgot, since they literally were doing this with other features of the PTR, like I explained, the AP amounts that I just mentioned on the artifact weapons. They were telling people, oh, this is not this number, these numbers are not set yet. They didn't do that with anything else. So you can't even say, like, oh, they forgot, because they were actively doing it with something else. They went along not telling people that all these things would not be available and would take way longer than everybody thought. It would be if, like, George R.R. Martin went out and said, I'm releasing the new novel Winds of Winter, and then people bought it, and it was only 5 chapters of a book, and the rest were blank, and then they found out after they bought it afterwards that, oh, you'll get another chapter next week. And then 2 weeks after that, you'll get 2 chapters. And then another 3 weeks after that, you'll get 3 more chapters. And you won't actually have the full book until it's done until like 3 months from now. But, you know, that would be... But, you know, it's actually out. That's what basically Blizzard is doing. If you saw that as a book, if that happened, you would logically say the book has not been fully released. It's being piecemeal trickled out and wouldn't actually be completely released for another 3 months. And that's what's happening here. The difference is, people are defending it and saying that the patch is out. The whole patch is out. Just a bunch of it's locked away. In my opinion, that's not out then. If all of this stuff you can't do, it's not out. It's ridiculous. 7.2 is a piecemeal patch that is being advertised like it's complete, but won't be complete for at least 11 weeks, almost 3 months. And this is the patch that's being packaged as the Tomb of Sargeras, which doesn't even actually have the Tomb of Sargeras raid in it. The raid won't even be out when everything else is done in 3 months. It'll probably not be out until the beginning/middle of June. And the patch where it comes out won't be 7.2, it'll probably be 7.2.5. Because Blizzard has now decided that the way they're going to do things is they're going to try and trick people and say, like, oh, this new raid patch is coming out, but guess what? The raid actually isn't included with it. And when the raid does come out, we're going to call it another patch and pretend we're giving you double the content, because look how much content we're delivering to you now. If this was Mists of Pandaria or lower, they would just say, here's 7.2, it's got all of the stuff, and the raid unlocks in a month, and ta-da! Not even a month, lower than that. But that's not what they're doing anymore. They're trying to trick people, and they're trying to pretend that things are completely out and released, because that makes people play, and pay them to play. Because remember, you have to pay to play this game. It's a subscription game. So, there was something else I wanted to bring up. Let me see on my notes. Oh! The item level scaling. I almost completely forgot about that. I'm glad I had notes, because I would have forgotten about that. So, for any of you who have been paying attention, and by the time this is out already, Blizzard has barfed out their large 15-paragraph response, which I'll address at the end of this next point. But for those of you who have been paying attention to the Legion development before it came out, you might remember that there was a big Q&A that they did in September of last year. Was that when this was? Yes, September 2016. And there were questions like... So, the questions were posed like this. So, with artifact weapons replacing weapons, how are you going to control the idea of power creep? And power creep, for those who don't know, is the idea of when you get more and better gear, the monsters are easier to kill because RPGs work that way. When you get better gear in RPGs, you are stronger, and the monsters you fight are weaker. So if you're playing an RPG like Final Fantasy X, and you're at the beginning of the game in Besaid, and you're fighting the Flans, or the Dingoes, or the Birds, at level 2 or 3 sphere grid, they're going to be a decently challenging fight. But when you get to halfway through the game and decide to come back to Besaid, the monsters will not be hard. And when you get to the end of the game, and you are really strong and you go back to Besaid, you can kill the monsters in one hit. That's a very simplistic version of power creep. When you get better and stronger items, you become more powerful, and the monsters you previously have fought become easier. So the question was, how are you going to deal with this with a system where you're not continuously upgrading your weapons, you're just teeny bit upgrading them item levels smallly at a time, very short. How are you going to deal with that compared to other expansions where you could go from a weapon that has so many so-and-so item levels and then jumps up 50 with an upgrade? And their response was, when we get to... I wish I had the quote right in front of me, but I closed the window out like an idiot. But their response was, once you hit level 110, we're not going to keep scaling the monsters to be as strong as you are. So they're going to have a flat line at 110 that's going to be decently challenging. And those of you who have made alts, like myself, I finally finished my first alt to 110. When you very first hit 110 and you're still in leveling gear, monsters are hard. But the benefit is you begin upgrading yourself, and then they become a little bit less difficult, and a little bit less difficult, and a little bit less difficult, until you get to a point where you are raid geared, and they really aren't that difficult anymore. And Blizzard said, this is the system we're going to use, because this is the system that's been in the game for 13 years, because there's a 13-year precedent that works, because once again, it's an RPG, and when you get items, you get stronger, and that is how it works in an RPG. But, lo and behold, in 7.2, they're changing that. And they did change it. And the best part is, they didn't tell anybody about it. It wasn't on the PTR, no one knew it was coming, and then the patch came out, and guess what they did? They scaled all the monsters at 110 to your item level. So, when you first hit 110, let's say you're at, I don't know, 795, 800 item level, and you're fighting the monsters and they're difficult. Well, now, when you're at like 850, 860, 870, 880, the monsters are scaled up, so they're basically that same amount of difficulty now. Because Blizzard wants, their excuse was, their big barfed out response was, let me see if I can find it real quick and read it verbatim from Ian Hazakostas, who is very quickly just destroying World of Warcraft, and I kind of think it deserves to die after all the especially 7.2, I kind of think it deserves to die after the shit they pulled with this. But let me see if I can find his direct response, because I don't want to be accused of misquoting him. Let's see. In Legion, while the new content in the Broken Shore is the focus, we made sure the core outdoor rewards are superior to the reprowesses and everything. Blah, blah, blah. You can still go back to the other zones for emissaries, and therefore they need to be around roughly the same difficulty. Okay, I'm not even quoting anymore. I just want to know why I'm reading this. But to reiterate, power progression is an essential part of the endgame. We absolutely want you to feel overpowered as you return to steamroll content that was once challenging. But there's a threshold beyond which the game's core mechanics start to break down. When you're winding up to 2.5 second cast and you can't because someone kills it in one shot, that feels broken.
Side note, maybe if you're doing that, you shouldn't be using your 2.5 second cast on mobs you can kill with an instant cast.
Maybe that's just being a bad player. But, you know, according to Blizzard, that's a valid defense to what they just did. But, so you need to spend apparently an amount of time to kill these new monsters, because they're apparently just eliminating the idea of power creep and power progression. So that's what happened. That is bad in and of itself. I think what is egregious about this whole topic is, like I said, they didn't tell anyone they were doing this. This was never on the PTR. no one knew it was happening. In fact, there were a few hours when 7.2 was live that people weren't aware that it was happening. They were making posts on the forums like, "Hey Blizzard, did you increase the health and damage of the mobs by 30 or 40%?" And people were not sure what was going on. And people eventually figured out that when you're taking off, if you fought a monster, if you're fighting in Stormheim and you're fighting the Vrykul, and you fight one monster, and then you take off 3 or 4 pieces of gear, guess what? The monster stats went down too, and people were experimenting and figured out that the monsters at 110 were scaling with your eye level. You know, the breaking precedent of 13 years of MMORPG in their own game, and the precedent of MMORPGs in general, and RPGs in general, because apparently Blizzard has not played like Final Fantasy 1 from 25, 30 years ago, or just forgot how gear progression works, I guess. They decided to do this behind our backs, without telling us, and in secret. And only once they got caught did they come out and say, here it is, here's the quote. "Why didn't we patch notes this? It was not to be deceptive. We know it's impossible to hide a change from millions of players, but the system was meant to feel largely transparent and subtle, like level scaling does, if you don't stop and think about it. And so we did want players to first experience that organically. Your feedback and reactions and first impressions are more useful in this particular case when they're not skewed by the experience of logging in and actively trying to spot the difference, which is honestly a load of fucking bullshit, because that's not how you develop an MMORPG. That's the same kind of horseshit lawyer speak that they say you shouldn't have flying because it ruins immersion. What kind of a joke do they pretend to think we are when they say your feedback helps shape the game, but in this one particular case, we didn't want your feedback? Even though they asked for feedback for the level scaling while making this comment pretending that they didn't, because they compared the level scaling to this and said that we wanted it organically to happen. Bullshit, it didn't organically happen to anybody. You logged in and you figured out that all the fucking mobs were way more difficult, and you noticed it immediately, but you didn't know what was going on. So, this wasn't subtle. They lied to us. They went incredibly, exactly antithetical to what they directly told us less than a year ago in that Q&A. They did the exact opposite in secret without telling us, and only once they were found out came out and said, Oh, it was intentional that we didn't tell you. We weren't trying to hide it from you. How could we hide it from you? You guys are so smart, and you're so cute and handsome, and look how much money you have, and your dick's so big. How could we hide that from you guys? You're so great. We just wanted you to experience organically. Fuck off. That is such a blatant, ridiculous lie on its face that it's insulting that they actually tried to make this. 7.2 is a scam. It is a scam of a patch. They are pretending it's a huge patch. They're talking about it being the biggest patch that has ever been made post-launch, and it's not. There is content there, but the vast majority of it is locked away that you can't do right now. So maybe it'll be a semi-decent patch in 3 months when it's all unlocked. I doubt it, because it still has all of the terrible ideas of Legion base. But maybe for some reason it becomes different. The problem is, we won't know until 3 months when the patch actually is fully out. So, this was the permanent last straw for me. I know I've said this, I think, twice before, where I said that I'm done with World of Warcraft, but I inevitably kept playing for the only reason that I was still playing with my friends. But everyone I know has quit. Howie, unfortunately, just like me, just resubscribed like 2 days ago in preparation for this, because guess what? The two of us were stupid enough to assume that all of the stuff they were showing us on the PTR was going to be alive when the patch launched, and was going to be able to be played, because they didn't tell us otherwise, and they lied through omission, and didn't correct themselves, and didn't dissuade people's misconception that all of this stuff was going to be available. The one and only thing that they told us you wouldn't be able to get immediately was flying. And even with flying, they gave the perception that you could begin grinding toward the flying achievement, And you can't. You can't grind towards something where you can't get any more of the reputation until world quests come back. That's not a grind. That's another time gate. It's a waiting. You have to wait. You can only do 5 world quests, and then you literally can't get reputation from any other source. So, everyone I know now has quit the game. Unfortunately, Howie and I just bought another month, but I'm not playing anymore. I literally uninstalled the entire game. I have a small clip of it on my Twitter if you want to see it, and I did it last night. So, that's it. I'm done. I didn't think that Blizzard could more insult me as a fan of their franchise and of their games. But I was wrong. I am a almost 20-year fan of Warcraft. And I stuck through them through WoD, even though I said it was bad, and I kept playing it because of my friends, and I kept giving them money. But I can't take being lied right to my face. I can't take these lies through omission, and these blatant lies, and then their horseshit excuses of trying to sneak things past us, and then when they get caught, trying to make up a ridiculous on its face reason of why they didn't do it. I'm done. And if any of you have any integrity about being lied to, and you think that's wrong, I encourage you to also unsubscribe. This is, I think, the only time I've ever encouraged other people to not subscribe as well, and I'm going to do it. Blizzard needs to be punished for what they just did here. They need to lose money. They need to lose money, and WoW needs to do bad for a little while now. And if that causes the death of WoW, good. It deserves to die, based on what they've been doing here. Based on Warlords of Draenor, based on Legion, based on patches like 6.1 being presented as an actual patch, being patches like 7.2 being presented as a large patch when it's not, with them pretending that they're releasing raid patches with the raids that don't launch for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months post the actual content patch coming out. If that's the WoW we have now, it deserves to die, because it's a festering corpse that's being kept alive while it's brain dead. So, there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed this very dark video, because I am absolutely livid. Last night I was so mad that I had to just sit here and stew in my anger. Now, of course, in the context of life and what's going on, it's not important. So I know all the people are going to be saying, not just to me, but they already have on the thread that I made, why are you getting so mad about a video game? The anger is in the context of it being a video game. You disingenuous fucks. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm absolutely livid as a gamer, as a fan of Blizzard, or a former fan of Blizzard, as a fan of Warcraft, or a former fan of Warcraft, and as a fan of WoW, or a former fan of WoW. I am absolutely livid that this is the pile of steaming horseshit that they dumped on my front door and tried to tell me this was the greatest patch ever. That's bullcrap. Shame on you, Blizzard. Seriously, shame on you. You deserve to lose money because of what you just did here. And it's not only because the patch is bad, it's because you did it in arguably the most shady way I've ever seen you act, ever. I've always, when I've criticized you in the past in Warlords of Draenor, and that was when I first started, because anyone who watched this channel for any amount of time knows that from Mists of Pandaria backwards, I loved World of Warcraft. Mists of Pandaria is my favorite expansion as someone who's been playing since vanilla, so it's not one of those, he's a new player so he likes the new expansion. Bitch, I've been playing since vanilla. I rated Naxxramas, I rated AQ40, I rated AQ20, I rated Zul'Gurub, Zul'Gurub. God, it was the first one. I rated Naxxramas, I rated Blackwing Lair, I rated Molten Core. I was in a high-end rating guild in vanilla. I played for about 11 years consistently until midway through Warlords when I stopped. And then all before then, I paid literally the entire time. I'm someone who's been playing World of Warcraft on and off for 13 years. And this is such an infuriating, deceptive move on your part that I'm done. I don't even care about flying mounts. I don't really care about flying in Legion. I don't care about going to Argus. Because if we go to Argus and it's anything like Broken Shore, it's going to be a piece of shit. And I would be better served just waiting and seeing the scenario and seeing these cinematics on YouTube, because I know that nothing you put in the game is going to matter. It's all going to be forced time sinks and time gates and releasing things, but actually locking them for 3, 4, 5, 6, 11 weeks. So, that's about it. I want to make sure I didn't forget anything, but I think I hit everything I wanted to hit. And there we go. I'm absolutely livid, and this is a joke. This is a joke. I feel like I actually was scammed, and I'm not going to support that. So, thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And look, if you're having fun in Legion in 7.2, great. More power to you. But I think of this as I think of, for example, movies that people say you have to turn your brain off to love. If I have to turn off my brain to love something, I don't want to love it. Because that means it's horse shit. That you have to ignore all the faults to try and find some joy in. And I don't want to do that. I want something to actually be good. I want a game to be good. I want a movie to be good. I want a book to be good. I don't want to have to ignore its faults for it to be good or even decent. But if you can enjoy 7.2, more power to you. I can't do that. I can't ignore the lies of omission, the shady things they're trying to pass without telling us, the increasing amounts of trying to hide things in undocumented changes to patch notes without us finding out, and only finding out because people who are smart are doing the math about it and figuring out and telling everyone. And I wish I could find it really quickly, because I want to give credit to the Reddit community that on r/wow, who first broke the story that we were getting scaled at 110 for our gear level, because Blizzard didn't tell us. In fact, they tried to hide it from us and sneak it past us. But I can't seem to find it because the thread I was reading replaced the link with the official statement, the 13 paragraphs of horseshit. And Blizzard, you deserve this. And I'm not the only one. Go on the official forums. Go on r/wow. Go on MMO Champion. Go on any popular place where you talk about World of Warcraft. And they're getting bombarded with hatred because they deserve it. So there we go. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comment below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm still going to make a Chronicle video. Probably not going to be as long as the last one because there's not that much new information. It's a lot of clarification and moving things around to make the timeline consistent. So, and what new information there is largely taken from Warlords of Draenor. So it probably won't be as long, but it will be coming soon. And until then, I think Walking Dead just put out episode 3. So let's go play a terrible game after we just played a terrible game. But until then, thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome. And yeah, it's okay to be mad sometimes. Because when you're absolutely livid, that's when you become more clear-minded. And you can know that you're being taken advantage of by a company and a game series that you've loved for 15 years. And that's it.